What is the best book you've ever read? The Cheesecake Factory Menu. I don't know how it ends. I never finished it. 1984 by George Orwell. It is crazy to think that it was written in the 40s and accuracy predicts what is happening in the 21st century. I feel like doublethink is genuinely a thing. The number of times politicians believe one thing and are required to believe it when the facts clearly contradict them is maddening. The Count of Monte Cristo. I just recently finished this and I feel like I ran the marathon of reading. I absolutely loved it, but holy crap. French writers take 3 pages to say something they could say in about 3 sentences. Seriously though, it's an amazing book and this story is just fascinating. Greater than but holy crap. French writers take 3 pages to say something they could say in about 3 sentences. Dumas was paid by the line. The Lord of the Rings. Tolkien wrote it as a single volume so it counts. Greater than Tolkien wrote it as a single volume so it counts. That still only counts as 1. The Name of the Wind and the Wise Man's Fear from Patrick Rothfuss. That wait for the next book has been awful. My child was about to be born when it came out. She's almost 10 now. The Martian. It has humor, but it's not in your face about it. The characters are compelling, and it has scientific accuracy. Also Potatoes. Such a great book. The audiobook is top-notch. 2. The movie left out a bit, and got some sequences wrong, but is still pretty good. I have yet to find a book that pulls me in quite the same way. The entire Dark Tower series by Stephen King was amazing in my opinion. P.S. It's nothing like the trash movie they made out of it. A Short History of Nearly Everything by Bill Bryson. East of Eden, John Steinbeck. Asterisk as a young reader. The book that got me interested in wanting to read more. Asterisk. The Secret Garden, Frances Hodgson Burnett. The Secret Garden is the most wholesome book I've ever read. The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Technically a novella, but it counts to me. 100 Years of Solitude. I feel as though a book or a novel isn't the right word for it. To me, the prose is almost poetic. When I read it, I feel as though there is some kind of hidden truth is being conveyed. Dune. The Idiot by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Read Brothers K and Crime and Punishment. Should I add The Idiot to my list? Brothers K is the best book I've ever read. I liked it way more than Crime and Punishment. I haven't read The Idiot yet either, though. Ender's Shadow, but you kinda have to read Ender's Game first, which is great too. Haven't read this one yet, but Speaker for the Dead is my all-time favorite book. Most people just stop with Ender's Game, and even though that one is fantastic, what many don't know is that he only wrote Ender's Game as a prequel for character development for Speaker for the Dead, which was his original idea. To me, Speaker takes the ideas that make the end of Ender's Game so powerful and then continues them in an entire book. It has an incredibly profound message about understanding others that are different from you. And honestly, every person who reads it would be much better off than before. I really can't recommend it enough. Ender's Shadow is Ender's Game from Bean's perspective. It's amazing, my favorite book in the series. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's sci-fi and funny and nice. It's pretty short, like almost 200 pages. But other than that book, I really like the Inheritance Cycle book series. It's fantasy and long. There's a fruit who really knows where his towel is. Ranger's Apprentice. Loved those books. All Quiet on the Western Front. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. I love Blade Runner. The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. It has nothing to do with the TV show, which is good. It's a mild horror story where you can't really draw the line between what is real and what only happens in the narrator's unraveling mind. It's also very poetic. Jackson was known for her amazing prose. A beautiful and tragic story with an iconic last scene. This book made me want to write too. I am a fully grown adult and still never tire of Roald Dahl. Matilda and The Witches are favorites. Might be cliché, but Harry Potter. The Inheritance Cycle. It's amazing. Sucks that I can't reread it, though, because I remember her most of the really big spoilers. Slaughterhouse-5. The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. It's amazing how relatable the characters were even now. Stay Gold Ponyboy. War and Peace. I know it sounds pretentious to say that, but it's seriously an amazing read. It made me realize how much of what makes us human is the same as it ever was. Blood Meridian or the Evening Redness in the West. Runners-up. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Ender's Game. And Then We Came to the End. Atonement. The Road. A Prayer for Owen Meany. Exhalation. Story of Life and Others. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell is a fantastic book. The detail in the footnotes. Such an epic book that kept me enthralled, and I still will think about it a lot. Beyond Good and Evil. Nietzsche. Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. Fahrenheit 451 and 1984 emo. They read like textbooks of the future. Brave New World is much more realistic in my opinion. Aldous Huxley is a genius. Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. It's a really beautiful meditation on age and death as told by a girl whose childhood at a boarding school that might have been slightly more dystopic than it first appears. Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. Jane Eyre. Shogun by James Clavell. It has everything. The Wheel of Time series. I've read about the first 2/3 of the series about 4 times now, but I've never made it past book 10. At that point there are so many characters that I just don't care about, and it feels like the story is going nowhere. Also, reading 10 books straight, I'm kind of burned out by then. But if I try to pick up where I left off after a significant break, then I have no idea what's going on. I've read up on how the series ends, but I don't think I'll ever actually finish reading it. That's the slog. Can be heard to read about Perrin marching, or Rand being angry, or Matt horny and also marching. But the last 3 or 4 books are so good and worth it. Emo. The last book especially. Crosses arms beneath breasts. The Count of Monte Cristo. East of Eden has jumped to the top of my list recently. I loved The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. For Whom the Bell Tolls, Ernest Hemingway. Interesting look at relationships, undiagnosed PTSD and mob mentalities in war. I can't really answer this question because I can't name a favorite. But The Sun Also Rises is a strong contender. Have you read it? I love For Whom the Bell Tolls, but Sun edges it out for me. Haven't read it but will now go out and buy it. Thanks for the recommendation, thumbs up. The Bible, it's such a page-turner. Violence, death, incest, donkey jizz, murder, robbery, plagues, perfect, right? Greater than donkey jizz. WTF. Bloody Christian studies at school kept out on best bits. Fuck. We could have had a mass debate in class about that. I'm gonna go with Into Thin Air by John Krakauer. The Road, Cormac McCarthy. Hogfather by Terry Pratchett. Love the humor in the characters. The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Kandera. Only book I read 3 times. Some new layer every time. Complete all different but also basically the best I ever read. Infinite Jest by Foster Wallace. The Stand by Stephen King. Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. A Confederacy of Dunces. Ooh yeah, me too bud. House of Leaves. Jurassic Park. I could read, finish it, and then start from the beginning without skipping a beat. This is coming from a die-hard Crichton fan, so maybe I'm biased. Dune hold up pretty well as an action-adventure book. Lone Ranger and Tonto a fist fight in heaven. For something with some literary teeth. It boggles my mind how much Sherman Alexie could make me sympathize with characters in a less than 20-page short story. Frankenstein and the Martian. That would be one amazing book. Frankenstein is a great book but so incredibly upsetting pretty much throughout the whole thing. Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. My favorites are The Long Walk by Stephen King and The Ruins by Scott Smith. For nonfiction, The Theory of Business Enterprise by Thorstein Veblen. Long Walk. Can't believe he was a college freshman when he wrote it. Really evokes a lot of emotions for each character. I have never heard anyone mention The Long Walk. It's also my favorite King, and one of my favorite books. Just finished it again last week and I saw it in a whole new light. Have you read The Descent by Jeff Long? That's my number one. But The Ruins are up there, too. Yes, The Long Walk is so underrated. One of his best books. Emo. The Neuromancer. It introduced me to the world of cyberpunk genre. Moby Dick. I've read it many times. It gets a bad rap about dragging through all the whale taxonomy, but I actually really enjoy those chapters. The book is called Moby Dick, or The Whale, after all. Plus, passages like this sum up my mood at times. Whenever I find myself growing grim about the mouth, whenever it is a damp, drizzly November in my soul, whenever I find myself involuntarily pausing before coffin warehouses, and bringing up the rear of every funeral I meet, and especially whenever my hypos get such an upper hand of me, that it requires a strong moral principle to prevent me from deliberately stepping into the street, and methodically knocking people's hats off, then I account it high time to get to sea as soon as I can. Quote, better to sleep with a sober cannibal than a drunk Christian. Quote, it's splendid. Come for a tale of adventure. Stay for the deep meditations on life and the realistic and detailed look into the life of a mid-19th century whaler. My favorite passage. The white whale swam before him as the monomaniac incarnation of all those malicious agencies, which some deep men feel eating in them, till they are left living on with half a heart and half a lung. All that most maddens and torments, all that stirs up the lees of things, all truth with malice in it, all that cracks the sinews and cakes the brain, all the subtle demonisms of life and thought, all evil, to crazy Ahab, were visibly personified, and made practically assailable in Moby Dick. He piled upon the whale's white hump the sum of all the general rage and hate felt by his whole race from Adam down, and then, as if his chest had been a mortar, he burst his hot heart's shell upon it. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I've never laughed out loud so much reading a book. All Harry Potter books. Any of the Stormlight Archive books. I cannot understate how breathtakingly beautiful and rewarding it is, as well as the third in the installment is Loki, the best self-help book I've ever read. They're a long read but honest to God worth it, and I would be shocked and disappointed if we don't see a media adaptation, hopefully animated, in the future. Yes, I'm reading Oathbringer right now and it's so good. I can't wait for Rhythm of War. The Mistborn trilogy and Warbreaker are some of my other favorites as well. Little Women. Jonathan Livingston Seagull. You see the story differently every time you read it. A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. I've probably read all of them about 4 times now, and it's still hilarious and entertaining. Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami is definitely up there. I mean, Jack Daniels from the whiskey brand and Colonel Sanders are both characters, and the 2 protagonists are a child runaway with 2 personalities and a Forrest Gump-esque old man who can talk to cats. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Like water for chocolate. Currently reading Dune. Wow, it's good. Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace. Followed very closely by Don DeLillo's Libra. When I saw this post, the first book that came to my mind was Infinite Jest. I am surprised I don't see it more on this list, however. I also battle with whether or not it is my favorite book. It is definitely, in my opinion, the greatest book I have ever read. The Sistine Chapel of Novels. One giant meditation, abiding one page at a time. And it is also just extremely hilarious. I have never laughed harder while reading. While typing this, I am convincing myself that it is my favorite, but I just don't foresee myself reading it again. However, I did just finish it for the first time in January, so maybe I just need more time. Percy Jackson Battle of the Labyrinth by Rick Riordan I think is my favorite book. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.